digital radio, on the app, on your smartphone, on X, YouTube, and Facebook. The Sportscast. Expect the unexpected.
The Donut Bag presented by The Sportscast.
The Donut Bag, hosted by Joey Bag of Donuts. And here's your host, Joey Bag of Donuts.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Donut Bag, part of the Sportscast Network. If you want to join in on the conversation, you could go to YouTube and look for my name, Joey Bag of Donuts, V instead of an F. Yeah, it's that time of year. It's fantasy football is heating up with all the drafts. With me is one of the greatest experts of fantasy football, Chris Dell from Bet Predators and the Post Gazette. How you doing?
Doing good, Joe. Good to join you again. Thanks for having me.
So, are you seeing anything this year that's different in previous years in fantasy football, or is it just general, you stick with your same strategies?
I get asked a lot about what strategies I like going into a certain year. I'd like to say, my favorite strategy is to have no strategy. I want to get the best value, the best prices on players. I have my guys. I have guys I like, but I don't want to ruin my draft reaching a round or 2 or 3 rounds ahead for 1 or 2 players, and my whole entire season hinges on 1 or 2 opinions on my player takes. I think to be a sharp fantasy player, you got to know half the time you're just throwing darts. It's really hard to predict truly what players will do well, what players won't. A lot of it's touchdown variance. And don't get me wrong, I won the Fantasy Pros draft accuracy contest for 2 seasons ago. I was number 1 last year for a couple weeks during the season as well. So it takes a lot of work, but at the same time, you also have to be kind of humble yourself and realize it's not all about my opinions on players. It's about how I value the market, buying the dip on certain players, not buying players when they're at their peak price in terms of what round they're going in. So I think what we saw last year is we had reached a boiling point of wide receivers becoming very, very popular. I think we had gone ever since I've been playing fantasy for 20 years. I think up until last year, it was always casual fantasy players were always all about running back early. And I think we saw a shift where wide receivers had really dominated the conversation for the last couple of years, last handful of years. And I think we saw a shift of mainstream casual players going more towards wide receivers early than usual. And we just had one of those years last year where running backs dominated. A lot of receivers busted that were drafted highly. Saquon Barkley, veteran changing teams mid-career. Derrick Henry, same situation. They were great. They won fantasy leagues, and a lot of sharp analysts were somewhat down on those players going into the season. So I'm not saying it's going to repeat this year, but just being aware that running backs are now back to expensive prices because of what happened last year. So to me, it's there's the first 20 or so players in your draft are all elite players. I'm not really worried about who I get in the first couple rounds. It's more about who you get into the middle to late rounds who really wind up helping you win your league at the end of the day. So not really a specific strategy. I'm just trying to get the best prices. It's like playing the stock market and coming out with the most bang for your buck at the end of the day. And you have a pool of players you like to draw from, and you go from there.
So when you say best prices, you mean you go by the ADP and you either go, you get them before their ADP or after their ADP, or how's that work?
Yeah, so a player's average draft position ADP. For example, we'll use a guy a little bit down the board. So let's say, Omari and Hampton, Chargers rookie running back, has an ADP of pick 39 in half PPR scoring. I'm very well ahead of the market. I've got him ranked as pick overall, my player overall 20 So I'm almost double the amount of spots compared to where he's currently going. Doesn't mean that when I'm at pick 20, I'm going to take Hampton in the second round. But if I'm up with an early third round pick, like pick 25 to pick 30, I'm definitely willing to reach like 10 spots ahead of ADP to get him, because I'm getting the best value where I have him ranked highly. The market's at 40, I'm at 20, I'm getting him at 30. That's a player I'm willing to reach on. Another example is like, let's say there's a player I'm not really low on, like AJ Brown. I've got him at 23 overall. His ADP is at 17. Some people will look at my rankings and say, why don't you like AJ Brown? I'm just like, you know what? I have all my rankings. I rank 150 players for half PPR and full PPR by position and overall. And I also do them by tiers. I have a very big tier of elite players between pick 13, Christian McCaffrey, to pick 24, Devon Achane, who slid a little bit due to a recent calf injury in training camp. So with AJ Brown, like I might be 6 spots below the market in terms of where I have him ranked versus where he's going in drafts. But if he falls to like pick 25, he's still on the board. Like I'm going to take him because I'm getting him past his ADP and eight spots past where I've got him ranked, and I still like him. So that's an example of a player where I may not be super high on compared to the market, but I will take the ADP value on in the early rounds. And that's kind of examples on both ends of the spectrum of playing the ADP game when you're drafting. Now, look, again, like you want to get your guys. You want to get guys you like. Like Travion Henderson, for example, has been skyrocketing up boards. I love the rookie running back for New England out of Ohio State. Top 40 pick overall in the draft. Has outstanding metrics. He's been killing it in training camp. His ADP has been skyrocketing the last couple months. I've got him pretty high as well. But at the end of the day, like I don't want to draft him in round 2. I've seen him go like pick 25. Like his ADP right now is pick 50. But if I'm at like the end of the third, fourth round and he's like at pick 37, I think I'm willing to do that because I really like him. And that's a situation where I'm willing to draft him ahead of his ADP because I think the potential is there. So you kind of look at it on both ends, upside and then also grabbing value.
Interesting. Yeah. If I had someone at 20, I don't know if I have the willpower to wait another round. I don't know, because if I really like them, I'd be afraid of losing them. So that's scary. You say it's all about tiers. Basically what that means is if you're looking for somebody and if it's your turn and they're not, some of the players you want are gone, as long as you get them in your tier, you're okay. Is that what that means?
Yeah. You use the tiers as a guide. Like just because I have one player ranked 30th and another player ranked 28th, like it's really not, like you look at the projections in terms of how many points you have them projected for, it's really not that big of a deal at the end of the day. So like look at the tiers. For example, in my top 150, I have let's go to the beginning. I have tier 2, and I've got CeeDee Lamb, number 5, Drake London, number 12. I have all those receivers in that tier ranked very similar, like projected very similarly, but you might see, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 5, Drake London, wide receiver 12. That's such a big difference. It's really not. So if I'm at pick 12, and that's what I wound up with in my draft, like I'm very happy because I'm like, man, I got pick 12. I get another pick right after, and I'm getting Drake London, who's in the same tier for me as CeeDee Lamb. So like I use that as a guide. Like you want to have like an idea of which players are worth drafting in certain rounds. And you're looking at, for me, like I have between usually 15 to 25 players in each tier. So each round, like it's not just 2 or 3 players I'm trying to pick between. And that's what goes back to earlier where it's like, I'm okay letting certain players go because I know there's a lot of players I want, but I want to get them at the best prices possible because then I'm going to have a deeper, better team at the end of the day. So I'm okay with like letting that one guy go. Now, look, maybe there's like one player where I'm going to go 2 rounds above just to get him. You got to be careful about that. I'll talk about a couple of those guys for me personally that I believe in. I could be wrong, and it could wind up hurting me more than usual than drafting them at their normal price, ADP. And I'm like, man, like this player busted, and I drafted them 2 rounds ahead of ADP where I could have had an all-star quarterback. Then you start getting yourself into some trouble. So that's why you got to be careful with not reaching too high on certain players. I think sometimes drafting a round ahead of ADP is okay. Know your draft room, like know your league mates' tendencies. I think once you get deeper into the draft, you have a little more leeway of like, hey, look, like this guy's ranked pick 100. I'm at pick 75. I'm just going to get him because he's like a trendy player. Maybe he goes 20 picks ahead by someone else. Like, I think once you get into the later part of the rounds, you have a little more wiggle room to play around with reaching on guys like that, but don't do that in the early rounds.
Does it hurt to have a draft position like really, really high or really low in the draft? Like if you're drafting number 1 or number 2 or in a 12 team thing, 11 or 12, does that hurt? Because you're getting your guy and then you're getting another guy soon after that, but then you got to wait a whole long. Does that change your strategy?
Yeah, it depends, man. Like, it all depends on who you have ranked in that top 12, right? And then conversely, like if you pick 1, you're not picking again till what, pick 24. So, and you're getting 24 and 25. So I don't mind that this year because I think that top 25 to 30 range is very strong. I think there's a clear top, let's talk full PPR. Like, because I think more people play full PPR than half, just for the sake of argument. It's not a huge difference between the two, but let's talk full PPR. I think there's a legitimate top 5 players, maybe top 6. Gibbs, Barkley, in no order. Gibbs, Barkley, Bijan. Those are your 3 running backs. They're the top 3 without a doubt. Throw McCaffrey in there if you want to be risky. I've got him behind those 3 guys just because of the injury risk is there with the Achilles tendonitis, which is a scary thing for a guy his age with the wear in his tires. Okay. Then you've got CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. Obviously, he's consensus number 1 in PPR right now. And then I'll throw Justin Jefferson in there. So 3 running backs, 3 receivers. I think the worst pick to be is pick 7 because like you're in a spot where you miss on the top 6. And then it's like, okay, well, if McCaffrey's fully healthy, then he's a no-brainer. But that's like a legitimate thing to worry about, in my opinion, this year is his health. Which is why I have him ranked more in that 12 to 13 range. But then when you get to pick 7, you're like, well, I kind of have like all these guys grouped together. Nico, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Puka Nacua. I mentioned Drake London, McCaffrey. Like what's really the difference between those receivers? As I told you before, I don't think there is much of a difference. So I'd rather get picks 12 and 13 back to back and get 2 of them than have to draft 7, get 1 of them, and then you're waiting for your next pick to come back in the middle of the second round. And I had this happen to me Sunday night in a draft I did with my friends where I had pick 7. I'm like, well, I took Nico Collins over McCaffrey. Full PPR league, you start 3 receivers, so I felt good about it. But I'm like, man, if I would have had pick 12, Nico probably would have been there, and I could have drafted like Brian Thomas Jr. right after. Instead, all the elite receivers I liked were gone at my second pick. I wound up taking Brock Bowers, which I was happy with, but I felt like I was kind of chasing receiver for a couple rounds after that. So very specific. Look, your league could go differently. Like you could wind up with Jahmyr Gibbs at pick 7. In that case, fantastic. You hit a home run. But I think like I'd rather be top 6 or I'd rather be like 11 and 12 so I get as close to back-to-back picks as I can. I think like 7, 8, 9 are the 3 picks like I probably don't want because they're like right between like getting the back-to-back and missing out on that top 6.
Okay. There seems to be Saquon Barkley is some consider the number 1 pick or real, like you said, top 5, top 7. There's this thought going around that if a running back had so many touches the previous year, I think it's like over 400 touches or something like that, they're going to be crap the next year. Do you believe that?
I think it's something that you should talk about. I don't think it's. I just don't. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it this year. There's way more positive attributes going on with Saquon Barkley than there is negative. Like, Saquon Barkley had a couple seasons where he didn't play all that much. Like, he's still just 28, doesn't turn 29 until February. He's running behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. He has a great passing game with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, like where teams can't just really sell out to stop him. You have a great play calling scheme. You have a great defense, which gives you positive game scripts where you can lean into run heavy games like we saw last year. So like, I'm not really worried about it. I mean, and look at Derrick Henry, man. Like, we keep saying this. People have been saying the same thing about Derrick Henry for the last like 5 years, and he's 31. He turns 32.
He's gonna fall off. This is the year. Yeah.
Their situations, I'll put both of them together, are so strong because of like their quarterback, their offensive line, the scheme that they're in. Like, none of those guys have like Achilles tendonitis. Like, that's what I'm worried about with McCaffrey. Like, he's like probably one of the hardest workers in the league. He's being smart about his rehab. Like, I get it. I'm rooting for him. Like, I don't want McCaffrey to get hurt. Look, man, like I'm gonna wind up drafting Joey like 200 best ball teams by the time the season starts. I'm gonna have some shares of Christian McCaffrey. But if I'm only drafted in like 2 home leagues with friends, coworkers, whatever, I just don't want that. I don't want my first pick to hinge on that. So like, I'm taking some McCaffrey in my best ball drafts. I'm gonna have like, around market share average compared to other teams. But he's just a player that, like, that to me is the difference, where like Barkley's not coming in with that type of injury. Henry's not coming in with that type of injury. He's still just 28. And given the situation that he's in, of course, I'm not expecting him to get as many touches, or to score as many touchdowns. You know what? He could still finish as the number 1 overall player, even if you reduce both those numbers from this year. So in half PPR, I've still got Barkley number 1, and I'm standing firm with that over Jamar Chase, over Jahmyr Gibbs. He's my number 1. In full PPR, I'm okay with you going Chase and Gibbs before Barkley, because the pass catching upside is there. I would still take him like 3rd or 4th at worst in that situation. So like, I'm gonna buy back in on Barkley this year. I think that he's still got left in the tank given the situation that he finds himself in Philly.
I'm staying the hell away from Christian McCaffrey because I had him in a couple leagues last year. I think I drafted him number 1 overall, and I got burnt. So I don't care what he does. Somebody else can have him, because I'm not dealing with that anymore. I'm still upset. Barkley, you said, was in such a great situation. It seems like so many players are rated high and ranked high, but they're in bad situations. Like, for example, Justin Jefferson, we don't know what McCarthy's going to be at quarterback. He's a freaking rookie, basically. And he's supposed to be the, one of the top receivers. I don't get that. Malik Neighbors, great talent, but who knows what the heck is going on at quarterback if Russell Wilson is going to be any good. What do you do when a good player is in a bad situation?
Well, I think it's a case-by-case basis. Like, we can talk about some of the ones you just mentioned. Malik Neighbors, like, he's been dealing with a toe injury, and it's become a little bit of an issue in camp. Actual same toe injury he's dealt with in college, too. I don't know what's really going on there. Obviously he played fine last year, was great in terms of his volume. Quarterback play was atrocious. Like, I think we get an upgrade there, even with Russell Wilson. What I'm excited about with the Giants is Jackson Dart. I think he's got a chance to come in and really open up that offense. And I love, if you're in a deep league, dynasty league, like best ball, like when you're taking 3 quarterbacks on your roster, I love getting like 2 sure starters and then like late in the draft getting Jackson Dart, because I think by mid-season, Giants have one of the toughest schedules to open the year, by the way. I'm pretty sure by mid-season, Dart's going to be starting. Very similar mold to what Ryan Daboll kind of became famous with, which was helping develop Josh Allen, like mobile, athletic quarterback with a big arm. Maybe he was a little rough around the edges when he came out. And that could be like his next Josh Allen. And I think Jackson Dart's looked great in preseason ball. So that's like, I'm excited about Neighbors for the potential for that, like midway to late in the season. I don't know how bad the situation is going to be like because of that. I think they added some nice pieces. They drafted Cam Scatabo, who I like a lot. I like Tyrone Tracy towards the end of last year. I think that could be a solid backfield duo for the Giants. So I think there are concerns with Neighbors. With Justin Jefferson, I understand your point. I would also look at like the positive side of like, I trust more in Kevin O'Connell than I do looking at the downside of a rookie quarterback in McCarthy. Because look at what Kevin O'Connell did with Sam Darnold last year. He got him paid, and like he carried Sam Darnold. Like, you could say it was Sam Darnold's year. I think it was more because of KOC, Kevin O'Connell. And that gives me some optimism about JJ McCarthy because he's got the weapons. Yeah, I know Addison's going to be suspended. He's still got Hawkinson. He's still got Jefferson. They got Aaron Jones. They brought in another talented running back in Jordan Mason. So if we believe more in the quarterback situation, Justin Jefferson could be like a top 2 or 3 pick. That's why I've got him at that 6th spot. He's outside that top 5, but he's still ahead of the other receivers because we know what Justin Jefferson can do when things go right. So, like, there are those situations, Joe, I'm, like, looking at, like, yeah, okay, the downside, but what if things go well? And look at the good side, too. And I see enough positives with Neighbors and Jefferson. Now, look, like, if you want to draft Nico Collins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Thomas, Puka Nacua, even Drake London ahead of those guys, I'm not going to really fault you because I have them close in my rankings. But I think you can poke holes at a lot of players once you get past that top 5.
Yeah. With quarterbacks, does it seem like it's a pretty deep year for quarterbacks? You have your top 4, and then, but I mean, that tier 2 is pretty strong too. It seems like, is the strategy to get the elite quarterback early, or can you wait and still get a good quarterback?
Yeah, I would say it depends, right? Like if you're in a 10-team league, I would go after the elite positions early, tight end and quarterback, the elite 1 positions. If you're in a 12-team league or deeper, it becomes a little more difficult, like to reach on both early. I think you can do one or the other. Like I told you, I was in a 12-team league. Like couple guys like I wanted in the 2nd round, like Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, all taken before my 2nd pick. So I was like, you know what? I'm going Bowers because if he hits like last year, I'm going to have an edge at tight end over my competition. But at the same time, I did feel like I was chasing at wide receiver for like the rest of the draft and trying to make up for not having that elite 2nd receiver. So it goes both ways. I think if I were to have taken Bowers and then go Lamar, Josh Allen in round 3, then I'd really be feeling like I'm chasing at running back, at receiver. So I'm okay going 1. I really like Bowers a lot over McBride personally. I think the situation for Bowers is a lot better. The play calling, the quarterback especially, Kyler Murray, like his inconsistent quarterback play concerns me a little bit, especially if Marvin Harrison's going to take a leap in his 2nd year. It's going to take a little bit away from McBride. So I've got a pretty big gap between Bowers and McBride. So like that's a situation where, yeah, like if you want to go Lamar, Josh Allen, I think Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts, if I was going to go elite quarterback, I would just take whichever of Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels fell the furthest. Like that would kind of be my strategy, to be honest with you, because I think there's very similar upside with their rushing ability, the tush push with Jalen Hurts. You talk about Barkley's touches going down in the run game. That only means there's going to be more pass attempts. So that's another option for the Eagles this year. And if that happens, Jalen Hurts is going to be the quarterback 1 again, like he was a couple seasons ago. So like, and again, like if I can get like a star running back in round 3 instead of Lamar Jackson and then get a similar archetype quarterback like Jalen Hurts a full round later, then that's where ADP can really help you a lot at the end of the day. So I don't put Burrow in that category. I'm repping the Bengals shirt over here. I got my Jamar Chase fantasy magazine in the back. Shout out to Matthew Berry's fantasy life. But I think people are reaching on Burrow as an elite quarterback. I'm only looking at those 4 rushing quarterbacks as elite options that I'm willing to draft highly. I'm almost never getting Burrow in drafts because he's going near where they are. And I just think there's a lot of variance with these pocket passers. Like, I'd much rather get Baker Mayfield at pick 100 than have to take Burrow at pick 50, because that's a huge difference in the players you can add in your roster at other positions. So I do think quarterback is deep, though. Once you get past those top 4, I've got a very big tier between QB 11 to QB 24, where I don't really have too much difference in my point projection for the season. Justin Fields, because of his rushing ability, we know he could be benched at any moment if he throws that bad. But if he doesn't get benched, he's gonna score fantasy points. It's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be another Tim Tebow-esque performance, which won people fantasy games. Kyler Murray. Then you got Jordan Love, Mahomes, C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, there's a lot of guys in there. I think, like, if things go right, if they lean pass heavy, these guys could be week in and week out consistent starters in the right matchups. I'll throw in Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams at the end of that tier, because I'm just not a huge Caleb Williams fan right now. But like, I think all those guys are similar, man. So like, once I get past Burrow, Baker, like the couple guys that I kind of put a little bit higher is like, but I mentioned Mayfield, obviously. Jared Goff, I think, like, given the situation in Detroit, they're going to throw the ball a ton. They've got excellent weapons. I'm not really concerned about Ben Johnson leaving in terms of what they can do in terms of pass volume. So I would still put him a little higher than usual. I think the 2 guys I really like going into this year that you can get at really good prices late in drafts: Bo Nix, second-year quarterback for Denver; Drake May, second-year quarterback for New England. They're not like elite rushers like the top 4 I mentioned, but they run a decent bit. They can add those 6 extra points if they get a rushing touchdown, add a couple points with their rushing yards with their legs. And these are like emerging offenses with play callers that we trust. Josh McDaniel, obviously Sean Payton with the Broncos, and the weapons are getting better on both teams. So those are 2 guys I think, like, I'm excited because I can get them like round 8, 9, 10, and they can maybe rival that Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts on any given week. So yeah, like I want to come away with like someone in that top 10, but at the end of the day, if you miss out on that top 10, I think it's a very flat, above average tier of quarterbacks after that fact. The only guys I really don't want: Tua, because of the concussion issues in Miami; Matthew Stafford, the back issue; Sam Darnold in Seattle. Don't really trust that system with him. And then guys that could get yanked at any second: Daniel Jones, Joe Flacco, Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers, I expect it to be a very low volume passing offense, very conservative, slow-paced offensive attack, which is why I don't think he's going to get benched. I just don't think there's going to be much fantasy goodness with the Steelers outside of 1 or 2 players. So that's kind of my overall outlook from like 1 to 30 on QBs this year. Don't be surprised if I've got like Jackson Dart ranked as a top 10 quarterback by week 10. He's a late round guy, to where if you can afford to stash a rookie like that in your bench in a super deep league, I'm definitely trying to do that when I can.
Interesting. I just think it's funny that if the Giants do poorly, which they probably will they get rid of the coach? And the coach would be best suited to develop Jackson Dable, but he won't be around because he'll be fired. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see.
I think he's given himself the out of like, hey, look, like, we got the veteran. He's in there. You look at, and then it's like, okay, like, give me a chance to develop this Jackson Dart kid. And if they wind up having a very bad win-loss record at the end of the year, but Dart looks good, then it's like, you know what, Dable, we're going to give you one more shot. We saw what you did with Josh Allen. We saw what you could do that one year with Daniel Jones when you made the playoffs. I mean, look at the Giants' schedule to start the year. They're on the road at Washington, loss. At Dallas, that's going to be tough. Home against the Chiefs, home against the Chargers. So that's like 0-4, most likely out of the gate. But then they're at New Orleans. Maybe they win that one. then at home against the Eagles, at the Broncos, at the Eagles, at home against the 49ers. So like this team could be like 1-9 by week 10. I think that's when the plug gets pulled. Maybe they put in Winston after Russ and just let Russ and Winston lose like all those games. And then the safety net's in for like some softer competition for Jackson Dart to show his stuff. I think that could be a realistic possibility in New York this year.
Yeah, that's funny. Mahomes is funny because it's a difference between real life football and fantasy. In real life, he's on a winning team that goes to the Super Bowl every year. In fantasy, he kind of sucks the past few years.
Yeah, because like you have to look at the situation going into this year too. Rashee Rice, like we don't know what's going to happen with him yet. He could wind up playing the first like month and a half, and then he could miss the rest of the season. The whole arbitration issues going on right now with him. So like, we don't know. I bumped Rashee Rice down a lot just because like there's a chance a player could miss the second. I'd rather than miss the first half of the year and you have them for the playoffs. You know what you're getting yourself into. Yeah. You don't want a guy, you want to try to like, you want to build for the playoffs, obviously here. We're trying to win at the end, not the beginning. We got to get there, obviously, but so like that's why for me with Mahomes, it's like he's back to square one of what he had last year. An aging Travis Kelce. He's got a halfway decent at best backfield. Hopefully Pacheco's a little healthier this year and can be more efficient. I like him okay as like a second or third running back on my team. And then Xavier Worthy could take a step, but Xavier Worthy's not like an alpha target, like a guy like Rashee Rice that's going to get 10, 12 targets a game. I don't really see that happening. So the Chiefs are going to have to play conservative a little bit. They're going to have to run the ball. They have a really good defense, and that defense is going to help them, not just have to open it up and sling it 40 times a game. I mean, I remember drafting Patrick Mahomes as a rookie when no one knew who he was, and he helped carry me to the championship game that year. But it's like we're a long time removed from that, and like I've got him QB 14. His consensus is QB 6. Like that's a little crazy to me. Like I think Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of all time, and I've got him ranked as my fantasy QB 14. There's a big difference, as you know, between fantasy and reality. So don't take it personal. I've gotten the most crap this week for my rankings of having Dak Prescott ranked too low.
I was just going to ask about that, yeah.
So my answer to people with that is like, look, maybe I move him up a little bit. He's coming off multiple injuries. They've lost multiple offensive linemen. Okay, they have Lamb, they have Pickens. They also have pretty much little to no running game. So I'm like a little bit hesitant. Like in best ball, if I get Lamb, I'm going to add Dak later as my quarterback because I want the stack, right? So I'm going to have Dak in best ball. If I'm drafting 1, 2, 3, 4 home leagues, like Dak's not a quarterback I want. So like I'm ranking him in the same tier between QB 11 to QB 24. So at the end of the day, if you want to say he's QB 11, like I'm not really going to fault you too much on that. What I will say is I'll never draft him over the guys I mentioned before: Goff, Mayfield, Purdy, Nix, May. Those guys I have a tier above. But when it comes to like Kyler, Jordan Love, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, like you can make bull cases for all these guys. And you can make a bull case for Dak. I get it. I think there's more reasons not to personally. I still think he could feed Pickens and Lamb and still be kind of mediocre as a fantasy quarterback at the end of the day. People talk about his like start to the season 2.5 years ago when he was like the QB1 through like a month. That's a long time ago, man. Like I'm not doing that. Like that's not how I'm ranking Dak. That's why I've tempered my expectations a bit. I don't consider him as like an elite ceiling type of quarterback. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I bump him up a few spots. I like the unknown potential of like Penix, of Bryce Young entering like a possible breakout season with Dave Canales as his offensive play caller. J.J. McCarthy with Kevin O'Connell. Trevor Lawrence now with Liam Cohen calling the shots. And you saw what he did with Baker Mayfield last year. Like C.J. Stroud with the new offensive coordinator after Bobby Slowick messed everything up in Houston last year, right? Cam Ward, number 1 pick, coming into a great situation, improved offensive line, good weapons around him, has rushing upside as well. Like, I'd rather take shots on those guys than Dakota Prescott, who I've seen play in this league now for like 10 plus years, like I'm good. Like I'm not going to take Dak Prescott in any home leagues. I think there's like maybe is there a coincidence that he's a Cowboy and you get the most crap if you wind up having Cowboys players ranked lower than the market? I think there might be a little bit of a bias here with Cowboys fans calling me out, but that's my overall genuine take on Dak Prescott and why I have him ranked lower than the market this season.
Does anything that happens in the preseason matter as far as fantasy? I mean, starters don't play. You're playing, vanilla defenses. Does any of it really matter in terms of, I don't know, anything about how preseason affects someone's fantasy value?
I think it matters a lot. I think it takes a lot of knowledge and experience to know how to parse through it. I think there's a lot that doesn't matter, and I think there's a lot that matters. You have to bring up, it's all team specific, it's all player specific, right? So like, let's take the Texans situation, like Jaden Higgins, rookie receiver, day two was a day 2 pick, so good draft capital. A lot of people have been drafting him in the offseason as like the clear-cut Texans number 2 receiver. You have a quarterback in CJ Stroud who had a down year last year, but as a rookie was great. Then you look at the training camp and preseason usage. When it comes to 2 receiver sets on the field, he wasn't on the field. It was Nico Collins and Christian Kirk. So you're like, oh, okay, like he's not even the number 2 receiver. So he's only going to be on the field when they're in 3 receiver sets. But when they're in 3 receiver sets, he's not the slot receiver. So the other rookie, Jalen Noel, could be the one on the field. So he could really be the 4th receiver on the depth chart at the end of the day. In that case, like that's a player I want no part of in redraft leagues. I think you could say similar things like for the Washington situation going on. According to Ben Standig, like Brian Robinson, like no matter what happens, he's not going to be back on the team. I think that people are overreacting in 2 ways. Like in one way, people are not drafting Robinson where there actually might be some value because if he slips like 20, 25 picks past his average draft position, and then he winds up on the Cowboys,
right?
Like, then it's like, okay, well, or if he winds up on the Texans, who don't really have a running back right now, then like you're like, oh, his ADP should have gone up, not down. So I think people are overreacting to him, and then they're also overreacting to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who I really like. And as of right now, I'm ahead of the market on him. Was 7th round rookie. He didn't play like I think last year or the year before because like. He had like an illegal jersey number, some really weird stuff. Look it up online for the details of that. But anyways, like guy who was like 7th round, usually 7th round running backs never play, very rare cases, but they happen from time to time and people love them. They become like these household underdog names. But if you watch the preseason game for the Commanders, Chris Rodriguez, who's been on the team multiple years, he started over Krosky-Merritt and he played more and he played better. So like to start the season, I think instead of just this guy, this 7th rounder, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt coming in and like being this all-star 7th rounder fantasy sleeper, let's look at reality. Like it's probably going to be like a 3-way split because Austin Eckler might play the most snaps in that backfield. People aren't really drafting him much higher, kind of an afterthought at this point. So like Eckler's probably going to get the most fantasy points. Then Chris Rodriguez and Krosky-Merritt could split. I'm still going to take Krosky-Merritt as long as he doesn't go super high. I think some drafts I've seen him go way too high. But that's an example where like preseason usage could matter because like one player is getting the hype, but in reality, when the starters are on the field, he's not the first running back on the field with them. That does matter at the end of the day in a lot of situations.
Yeah. Travion Henderson had that really good game. And seems like his value shot up like crazy. You have him pretty high too. Yeah. Is he the real deal then?
I think he's the real deal. I really do. He's one guy that like I want to come away like every draft with either Hampton and or Henderson. Like those 2 rookie running backs I'm really high on. I did an article for Fantasy Pros the other day about my sleeper running back, like a running back who was being drafted outside of the top 15 in fantasy. And like he's to me, it's like just because it's obvious doesn't mean it isn't true. I talked about earlier, he's been skyrocketing his ADP of draft boards, top 40 pick. He's doing it all. Like he's excelling as a rusher, as a pass catcher, and as a pass blocker, which is really important for rookies to stay on the field, especially in those third down situations. We could talk about that with the Pittsburgh Steelers backfield in a second too. I think that's an important thing to talk about when you talk about preseason mattering and not mattering. And with Henderson, and he's doing it as a special teamer. He's returning kicks too. Coaches trust this guy. Like they love him. Coaches love a running back who can pass block, period. Like you'll get running backs who are not electric or dynamic at all with the ball in their hands, but they'll get more carries and they'll play more snaps because they can pass block, point blank, period. And if you if you have the rushing skills to add to that, this guy had an elite 40-yard dash coming into the draft, 91st percentile burst score, 92nd percentile college yards per carry, 6.9 yards per carry at Ohio State. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson's the only thing holding him back to like a full workhorse role. But let Ramondre get all those carries between the 20s on first and second downs. Like those are the really touches for running backs that really don't matter. We want like touches inside the 20, 10-yard line. We want the targets. Targets are worth 3 times more than a carry in fantasy football. And with his explosiveness, you add the fact that Ramondre's had issues both with fumbling and with recurring injuries. Man, I think it's like all green light season for TreVeyon Henderson. I drafted him in my Dynasty League 2 weeks ago. Super excited about that. And I think Hampton's in a similar situation with the Chargers where Najee's dealing with this like really weird eye issue. We don't know when he's actually going to be back. So like I really want to come away with like, and you can get them either like third or fourth round right now. I want to come away in drafts like with one of those two guys. Like those are two of my favorite running backs on the board. Couple of rookie receivers I like in a similar vein: Emeka Egbuka, Travis Hunter, Ricky Pearsall. I'm trying to come away with at least one of those receivers as well. I think there's some really good upside on rookies early in drafts in like those first handful of like rounds up until like round 6 or 7, where I think they could immediately contribute and become fantasy factors from like week 1 this season.
Well, you're really high on Calvin Ridley too.
I am. And what we saw last year was when Mason Rudolph, let me put it this way. When Mason Rudolph started, Calvin Ridley was like a top 10 receiver. He was getting top 10 targets. He was putting in top 10 performances week in and week out. It wasn't really about Mason Rudolph. It was when anyone besides Will Levis was starting.
Will Levis is horrible.
That's how bad Will Levis was. And so like Cam Ward, he's been getting all the right buzz out of camp from his coaches. People talk about a rookie number 1 pick who has his head on straight. That's who Cam Ward is. And we've already seen a connection on first read targets and preseason games between Cam Ward and training camp practices between him and Ridley. And there's no competition for targets besides Calvin Ridley this year. I'm high on Tony Pollard. I'm high on Calvin Ridley. They brought in multiple offensive line pieces during the offseason. They've got a new offensive scheme and regime there in Tennessee. I'm going to be bullish on Tennessee this year because I think Calvin Ridley could wind up being top 5 in targets, top 10 in fantasy receivers by the end of the year. He's being drafted as like wide receiver 25. I've been drafting him a ton in best ball, and I'm more than okay of him being my second or third receiver in redraft leagues as well.
Interesting. You're down on Garrett Wilson, which totally makes sense if Justin Fields is just going to be a running quarterback and does not look like a good accurate passer. Devontae Adams, I get, who knows what's going on with Stafford, but T. Higgins, why are you so down on him?
I don't really
Bengals guy.
I don't consider myself down. I probably need to move him up. Like I've got a target share differential in my point projections between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, since T. Higgins is the clear number 2 receiver. I've got him in a tier with Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams. Like those are guys that are being drafted highly as well. Probably a guy I need to move up at the end of the day, to be honest with you, Joe. I'm doing rankings updates every day based off camp news, based off preseason usage. I've still got him as a top 22 receiver, which I think is really good. Overall, I've got T. Higgins. He's in my top 50, top 45, but he's being drafted a lot higher than that. So like, that's when I decide to like reassess and change my rankings is with like, hey, look, like I'm not down on this guy, but compared to where he's going in other drafts, if I'm drafting according to my rankings, that means I'm never going to get him. And I don't want to like leave all my drafts with like no T. Higgins. I think he's a player worth drafting. So that's a situation where I'm going to have to move him up, get a little closer to market so I can get a few shares of him here and there. So yeah, it's again, like I'm ranking 150 plus players. I'm going to make some adjustments here and there. And he's been someone I've been considering making an adjustment on as well.
You're pretty down on DK Metcalf. Is that because of Aaron Rodgers or just what you're seeing with the Steelers, or why is that?
I've got DK Metcalf at wide receiver 25. His average draft position right now is wide receiver 21. So a couple spots lower, not a huge deal. I think we have to look at what Aaron Rodgers has done as a quarterback over these years. And what he does is he drains play clocks. He runs a very slow-paced offense. So play volume and pace are very important in fantasy football. When you're a team that's going to run less plays on average, that means there's less chance for pass attempts, less chance for receptions, less chance for yards. Those are all things we care about in fantasy football. So in that case, like I have to bump DK Metcalf down because like I'd rather have George Pickens, who's going to be in a very pass-happy offense in Dallas. Way more plays, way more passes. T. Higgins I have ranked above DK Metcalf, even though I'm lower in the market on T. Higgins right now. Calvin Ridley I mentioned as well. I think those teams are going to lean in terms of their pass rates going to be over expectation, whereas like the Steelers could have like the lowest pass rate in the league. That concerns me a little bit, where if it's like he's not scoring the touchdowns, you're going to be like leaving a little bit on the table there compared to your other receiver who's going to get more targets in a given game on average. That's kind of my biggest discrepancy with DK Metcalf right now. In full PPR, I like him less. In half PPR, okay, I'm a little bit willing to like be closer to market on him, but that's my concern with Aaron Rodgers and also with Arthur Smith, who's never really been one to like super focus on one target in the passing game. This is a guy that likes to have like 3 tight ends on the field at once, use his running backs in the passing game, spread the ball around. So I think there's some obstacles to DK Metcalf of like truly having a standout, fantasy wide receiver season. So that's why I'm a little bit below average on him.
In terms of Steelers running backs, you have Caleb Johnson. Little down on him, which is totally understandable, but I'm not even seeing Jaylen Warren at all. Do you think that's, I mean, it seems like that's the consensus is Caleb Johnson is going to be the guy that you want as a running back, but yeah. I don't know. Reality seems like Caleb Johnson has not had the best training camp, and really Jaylen Warren's doing nothing because they're saving him for the season.
Yeah, so that's like what I wanted to talk about because I've got Jaylen Warren right in line with the market. He's my RB29. That's exactly where he's going with his ADP. I took him this past weekend in the draft I was telling you about. I had Hampton as my first running back. I got Pollard as my second running back. I talked about being high on him. And I was like, I had drafted Bowers in round 2, and I had taken some receivers in between. So I was like, man, I really need to get a good third running back I believe in before they start going off the board. And I took Warren. It was a full PPR league. I think he's going to catch a lot of passes from Rodgers. We know Rodgers likes to dump down to his running backs. The preseason usage or lack thereof was a positive because when you see a guy that's resting every week, you know at least out of the gate he's going to be the starter. And I think the pass protection thing plays more of a factor here than in most teams because we have the rookie Caleb Johnson. Like pass protection has been an issue in practices. Like obviously that's my day job at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm talking to Jerry Dulac, Ray Fittipaldo, Brian Bacto, Christopher Carter, all of our Steelers insiders. They're at practice every single day. They're seeing what's on the field. They're talking to the coaches. They're plugged in. And it's been a disappointing camp relatively for Caleb Johnson because of that. So I think that people are high on him because They see, oh, he's going to be the next Najee Harris. Boom, let it go. Simple as that, done. I think this could be the 1 year where Jaylen Warren gets a little bit longer of a leash, a little bit more of an opportunity. I think he's an underrated rusher. So those reasons alone, like if Caleb Johnson misses a blitz pickup and Aaron Rodgers gets sacked, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a little bit of sway in terms of what running back he wants on the field for the rest of the game, as opposed to like Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson button heads last season. So I've got Caleb Johnson 4 spots below ADP. Honestly, I could move him a little bit lower. It's kind of hard though, because once you get past that, there's a lot of holes to poke in everybody. But yeah, I am taking Warren over Caleb Johnson, whereas the market is the opposite right now. But to me, Warren is the clear starter, at least from week 1. That could change over the course of the season. I understand that. But I'd rather, unless we're talking like non-PPR, like no points for receptions at all, maybe I'd move Caleb like 1 spot above, but I still like Warren more this season.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see a scenario where Caleb Johnson just has a really slow start and then eventually contributes more during the season. Why so low on Courtland Sutton?
It's funny. My friend who's in a bunch of leagues with me from high school texted me the same thing last night. I don't know, man. Like, you know, Courtland Sutton, like we know what he is. He's a veteran receiver, good size, doesn't have like blazing speed or athleticism. He's going to play on the outside. I mean, I think he's fine. I think wide receiver, he's in my top 30 wide receivers, but like the guys ahead of him, like Jackson Smith and Jigba, George Pickens, Ricky Pearsall, who could be the number 1 target in San Francisco in a great offensive system. Emeka Egbuka, who could be the step in from day 1 and be Chris Godwin 2.0, first round draft pick. Travis Hunter could be Chris Godwin in Jacksonville with Liam Cohen going over in that system. He's already playing the slot. I think he's going to wind up playing like 80% plus snaps. I just cannot rank Sutton over those guys. I just can't do it. I'm playing for upside here. So if Sutton falls like a round past his ADP, I'm perfectly okay with getting him. Don't get me wrong. It's hard for me to move him much higher than where I have him right now. Would I draft him over Garrett Wilson? I'm lower than market on Garrett Wilson, but at the end of the day, Garrett Wilson might like lead the league in targets by the end of the year because he's like the only guy to throw to in New York. Like, he might only catch half of them because they're going to be off target, but you know, it's like that's where like the conversation to me begins is like, okay, like where do I take Courtland Sutton? I think Courtland Sutton's fine as your wide receiver 2, as your wide receiver 3. I'm okay with him, but those are the reasons why it's like we know what the upside is. Like, I want the unknown upside of like what could Travis Hunter be if all things break right? What could Egbuka be if all things break right? I feel like I've seen that for Sutton. It's probably like wide receiver 15, 20. I don't think it's ever getting into the top 10 with him. And you see the emergence of Marvin Mims in that offense, who had a great efficiency year last year as a part-time player. He's been running as a full-time receiver in camp. I think he might be finally getting out of the doghouse with Sean Payton. You've got another year of progression from Bo Nix. I think Sutton's target share could go down a little bit. Then you add the running back RJ Harvey. You sign J.K. Dobbins in the offseason, so there's more mouths to feed in the offense in general. Those are some reasons why I might ding Sutton a little bit compared to other number 1 receivers in the league.
Man, you really hate Marvin Harrison Jr. What did you do to you?
I do. I don't hate Marvin Harrison. This is like this. There's some personal bias here with me. I had in our Post Gazette Fantasy League, which this will be our 3rd year running because I had to revive it when I moved here to Pittsburgh 2 years ago. So shout out to Christopher Carter, your boy. He won our league last year.
Of course he does.
I got to get revenge.
The dude's a genius. Of course he's gonna win it.
So anyways, like last year, this wasn't on purpose. It was just like I probably made a mistake of drafting too many Cardinals. I took McBride. I had Kyler and Marvin Harrison. And that was why I did not win the league. Just put it that way. Kyler Murray, I watched too much Kyler Murray last year. I just am not a Kyler Murray fan. I'm sorry. Like, he's going to get there as a solid top 10 QB option most weeks because he runs, even though he ran a lot less last year than usual. The problem with Kyler Murray is he's very short. and he has trouble staying in the pocket and making his like second, third progression reads over the middle of the field in those intermediate areas. So he's either going to like dump it down quick, aka Trey McBride being a target monster. If not, then he's going to like tuck, scramble, run in circles, do his little like, little scattering thing. And that means Marvin Harrison isn't getting the targets, because as much as I would love to see them use Marvin Harrison in the slot, like that's McBride's role. So I think Marvin Harrison is going to be in a very similar role to what he did last year. And I think there's going to be a really big challenge of getting Kyler Murray to have success, even throwing the ball in that vicinity. So it's really doesn't have much to do against Marvin Harrison as it does like with that quarterback, with that offensive system. I've got Marvin Harrison. Like, look, I've got him around guys like Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel, Devonta Smith. Like, I think he belongs in that group, man, honestly. We saw him as like he played like almost 100% of snaps last year, and he just did not do it no matter what format you look at. He only had 3 games all season with double-digit targets, so wasn't even really earning the volume. I mean, let's look at the last 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at the second half of the season after the bye week. You think, okay, after we call it a post-bye rookie bump, right? Of like after a bye week, a rookie's going to take that next step during his first season. Marvin Harrison, I'm going to read off week by week. He was wide receiver 51, right? Wide receiver 21, 42, 65, 58, 32, and then, great week, wide receiver 16 in the last week of the season. So you want to come at me for being too low? I'm actually ranking him above what he did last season. So you got to put some things in perspective there, and I am going out of my way to be lower, like 20 spots lower, because if you're going to use my rankings, I don't want you to ever draft Marvin Harrison, and that's why I'm being aggressively low on him this year.
Yeah. I mean, Kyler Murray, I mean, this is not his first year, where you kind of know what you're getting, and he hasn't really progressed. He had that good year with, who was it? Stiggs, or who was that? I forget what's his name, but he was okay with it there. But I think they're trying to revive that with Harrison. But yeah, it's not working, and that's concerning.
Harrison had some separation issues last year too. If you look at the tape, some smarter people that analyze wide receivers than I do on tape, like there were some issues with him on press man coverage, like of him actually beating his man and getting separation. Whereas like he's more of like a smart zone scheme route runner. But the problem is, again, like the zone schemes he's running in with his routes, like those intermediate areas where it's going to take a little bit more than like 1 or 2 seconds to find him and throw him the ball. You got almost like the worst quarterback style to do that with Kyler. And I saw a lot of that last year. And frankly, like I think they're going to try to force it a little bit, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's really going to change all that much. And I mean, that's why I think Trey McBride is going to do what he did last year, which is like be a target monster. He's going to score more touchdowns, Trey McBride. He's going to have more than 2 touchdowns this year, which is going to take touchdowns away, I think, from Harrison too. At the end of the day, you still got Connor. So yeah, it's tough for me. Like Marvin Harrison, like he might have a couple spike weeks. So what? Like Darius Slayton is going to have a couple spike weeks too. Doesn't mean I got to draft him in like the top 20 or 30,
Right. You seem to be a little low on the Bears. Are you not buying the whole new coach, new second year for Caleb Williams? You're not buying that whole thing?
I go back and forth. I'm like right at market with DeAndre Swift. I think he's a fine pick. I'm actually above market on Colston Loveland. I think he could come in and be like close to a number 1 target for the Bears. DJ Moore, I'm above market on him too. I'm really below market on Caleb. I just don't like the vibes coming out of him out of camp, like the personality stuff, the attitude. Maybe I'm like counting that a little too much against him because of Ben Johnson coming into town. He can fix things. Probably too low on Rome Odunze right now. I think I should probably bump Odunze up a little bit and bump DJ Moore down a little bit. I was just really disappointed in Odunze's rookie season. I've heard some talk about Odunze being the top receiver in the offense, but then you also hear Ben Johnson saying he wants to use DJ Moore like he used the Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I'm like, I don't really know which way to go with that. What I do know is Colston Loveland's a very talented tight end. Some people thought he was a better prospect than Tyler Warren. We saw what Ben Johnson did with Sam Laporta as his rookie tight end season when he was the number one tight end in fantasy. And we saw Caleb Williams threw the ball a lot, even to Cole Kmet last season. So if Loveland can take the starting job from out the gates, I think he's my favorite Bear to draft. If I miss out on an elite tight end early with no McBride, no Bowers, I think Kittle's being a little overdrafted. Not saying I don't like him, but I think he's going a little higher than what I would prefer to take him. So if I miss out on that top 3 or 4 guys, I'm excited to get Colston Loveland late in drafts as a guy who has the potential, if the Bears offense is good, to be a top 5 tight end. So yeah, I think it's more me I'm not going to draft Caleb, but I am willing to take shots here and there on DJ Moore, on Colston Loveland, on DeAndre Swift, and I don't know. Rome Odunze is tough. I wasn't impressed last year with what I saw. I think based off his draft capital, I should move him up from 2 years ago, but I don't know if I should really base my ranking more on his performance last year versus what he was drafted to be. That's a tough one for me right now.
Besides anybody that we talked about, who are you loving? Who are you targeting to make sure that they're on your team?
Well, I talked about 2 of my guys, the rookie running backs, Travion Henderson, Amari, and Hampton. Those are guys I really like a lot. Round 2 for me, I love the running backs you have a chance to get with Chase Brown and Bucky Irving. Those are 2 guys I love in round 2. Quarterback-wise, I think we talked a lot about that already. A little bit further down the board, I think running backs, I mentioned Tony Pollard. I think we talked about a lot of those guys. Receiver-wise, we talked about that tier in the first 2 rounds. Guys I really like that maybe we haven't talked about. Jamison Williams, I really love this year. Xavier Worthy, I've got both of them way ahead of market right now. Those are a couple extra guys. I mentioned Egbuka. I really like, even though I talked about Pearsall, I also really like Jawan Jennings. I think him and Jennings could both be week in and week out starters for San Francisco. I've moved a couple guys I've moved up recently. Stephon Diggs in New England, if he's back to his old self, he's been fully healthy according to reports at a training camp, and that's a quarterback / offensive system I'm buying into. And he's got no target competition at all in that offense in terms of the pass catchers there. So I like Diggs. I like Jerry Jeudy, especially if Joe Flacco is going to start the year at quarterback. I think Judy's got some value right now based off where he's going. Matthew Golden, the rookie receiver out of Green Bay, because Dobbs is hurt, Watson's hurt, Wicks was a bust last year. There's really not much. Jaden Reed's hurt right now too. Golden could be the number 1 receiver from day one. And he's a pretty explosive prospect too. Those are out of my top 50 receivers. Those are a handful of guys I'm higher than the market on. One other guy I'll throw in, Rashid Shaheed. I've actually got him ranked above Chris Olave, which is I'm 9 spots ahead of the market on Rashid Shaheed. 13 spots below market on Chris Olave. You just frankly look at when they both were on the field last year. Rashid got more targets. He had more yards, had more production. Olave's 1 concussion away from possibly missing an entire season. But even without that, he was still outproduced and out-targeted by Shaheed. But Olave is being drafted higher because of draft capital from a couple years ago. Yeah. So that's one flip where I'm willing to hold my ground on. I'm not drafting Shaheed where Olave is being drafted, but I'll just pass on Olave and wait a round or 2 later and draft Shaheed. I'm going to do that 9 times out of 10. Going down the board, because I have 90 receivers ranked, I'll give you a couple super long ones. One guy I really like a lot, and I just want to bring up his college metrics because they're really really crazy when you look at it. if you're in a deep league, if you're in a dynasty league, or even just a guy to put on your watch list on the waiver wire, Isaac Tesla from Detroit. They drafted this guy in the 3rd round, like 2 rounds ahead of where anyone was expecting him to go. Kind of a little-known receiver, but has outstanding size, outstanding speed. 6'4", 214 pounds. Went at the beginning of the 3rd round. They traded up to get him. 97th percentile speed score according to Player Profiler. 98th percentile catch radius. 97th percentile agility score. 91st an elite athlete. You think like a funny-looking white receiver with curly hair is going to be a slot receiver? No, this guy's like a burner on the outside, and he could have a chance from day one to step into like one of the most efficient passing offenses in the league. He could be their wide receiver 3 next to St. Brown and Jameson Williams from day one. And if you're in a deep league, a league that starts 3 receivers, 2 flexes, he's a guy I've got my eye on. I'm drafting him in a lot of late rounds in best ball when you have like 18 to 20-man rosters. I think we could be talking about this guy this year. You don't have to draft him week 1 right off the bat. He's a guy I've got my eye on. Super explosive, great situation. He's like my super deep wide receiver sleeper this season. I've got him as my wide receiver 68. He's being drafted as like the wide receiver 100 right now, for context.
If he's not driving a Tesla, something's wrong. That dude should have a fleet of Teslas.
You gotta say the extra A at the end, Tesla.
Tesla with a capital S for some weird reason. That is so weird. Who besides Marvin Harrison Jr. are you just hating? Like there's no way in hell they're going to be on your team.
Devonta Smith.
Why?
Because he's a clear. You have like the run heaviest team in the league. Great defense still. They're going to run the piss out of the ball. And even if Barkley's not getting all the touches, you know who's going to get a lot of them is Will Shipley. They're really high on him as well. Unless A.J. Brown's hurt, and it's going to be hard to get the volume to be a consistent fantasy producer for Devonta Smith. I think he's a great talent. If Devonta Smith was traded to the Chiefs, I'd move him up like 25 spots, like the next Rashee Rice. You know what I mean? It's not about Devonta Smith I don't like. It's the situation he's in. He's a guy I'm not drafting at all. I think I've done like 100 best ball drafts, or I'm like in 100 best ball drafts right now that are slow drafting going on right now. I don't think I've taken him like one time. I think maybe the only time is if I drafted Hurts early and I just grab him as like my 4th or 3rd receiver. In home league drafts, not taking him. Him and Marvin Harrison, I'm not getting at all. Those I would say maybe Zay Flowers, a guy I'm lower on than market than usual. He's a guy I'm not really targeting in redraft formats either. I think it's the same situation. Like Mark Andrews healthier, Lamar as a run-heavy quarterback. The volume isn't going to be high week to week. You're going to need those spike weeks. It's going to be very hit or miss with him. So those are kind of 3 or 4 guys in that wide receiver 20 to 40 range that I'm going to avoid in most of my home league drafts.
Do you believe in handcuffs? Do you believe in drafting? If you get Barkley, you should get his that Shipley you mentioned or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Depends how many roster spots you have. Depends on how big your bench is, how competitive your league is. Like, if I've got like a very short bench with only like 5 spots on my bench, it's gonna be hard to like roster a backup. I don't know. That's just me. Like, I'd rather take shots on starter. I'd rather roster handcuffs for other players I don't have. Because, like, let's say you have Barkley, but then you draft Tyler Algier. If Bijan gets hurt, now you've got 2 elite running backs on your team. You got Barkley and Algier. If Barkley gets hurt and you have Shipley, you go from 1 to 1. Like, I'd rather not play it safe. I'd rather play it aggressive, go for the other guy to get hurt, and get his handcuff. So, you know what I mean? Like, I think you got to think about not trying to play it safe all the time. I'm okay as a top 5 pick. I think Shipley is a clear handcuff to Barkley. I think Algier is a clear handcuff to Bijan, and I think that Montgomery, he's a much higher expensive player in terms of his ADP. He's kind of a handcuff to Gibbs at the end of the day, even though he's still a standalone starter in the right format. So those are situations. I think outside of that, it gets tricky because like Zach Charbonnet to Kenneth Walker, yes, he's going to play. He could be a flex starter. He's going to be a monster if Kenneth Walker ever got hurt. It gets a little murkier down the board. So sometimes you think a guy's a handcuff, and the guy ahead of him gets hurt, and he's still splitting time with someone else. So just be a little careful with who you're handcuffing there. I think it could go both ways.
Yeah. So where can people find you, follow you, and get more of your work?
Yeah, man. Just go to Twitter. It's at Mad Journalist, MADD Journalist with 2 Ds. I post my weekly usage deep dive Twitter thread there during the season. I do waiver wire rankings. I have my rest of season trade rankings, which I'll probably launch a couple weeks into the season. I have my weekly rankings that'll become my week 1 rankings will be coming up soon. I also do weekly Q&As for waiver wire and start sets. I'll be doing 2 Discord Q&As a week with Fantasy Pros this season as well, one on Sunday mornings and one on Thursday nights. So be on the lookout for that. Doing some other things on Reddit and whatnot as well. But pretty much everything I'm doing, it's all going to filter down to my Twitter account at the end of the day. I still call it Twitter, not X.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever change that. When I go to type in, I don't type x.com. I still type in twitter.com.
Me too.
So yeah, that's where you can find all my stuff, all my links. I'll be posting there. I've got some exciting partnerships in the works that I'll probably be announcing here in the next week for the season, working with some cool companies. But yeah, that's where all my stuff is. And you can also check out my website, bettingpredators.com. It's where I post my rankings. I'll have the link on my Twitter, but if you want to go directly there, you can get the rankings there. I try to update them every day. Some days I don't make updates and mostly do research. But at the end of the day, that's where the rankings are going to be for the time being. So make sure to follow me there. Try to ask me a question. I'll do my best to answer. And yeah, I'm excited, man. It's going to be a fun season. And I really appreciate you bringing me on again to talk fantasy, man.
I saw you on Reddit. You did an AMA. How cool is that? I thought that was just like celebrities and stuff.
That was really cool, man. They reached out to me last year after I won the Fantasy Pros draft contest, and I've done 2 AMAs so far. The traffic is like out of control. Like they tell me like, we want you to go on for an hour and a half. I was on for like 3 hours because I was trying to answer everyone's questions, and I couldn't even get through half.
It's like 500 questions or something like that. Like, my God.
It wound up with like over 450,000 views, over 500 questions. God. It's a lot. So I have a premium package on my website where you can join my subscriber Discord and like be guaranteed to have all your questions answered for like start, sit, draft stuff. So you can check that out. A lot of the content I post is for free, but if you're consuming my content for free, there's like not a guarantee I'm always going to be able to have time to answer it, because I actually have a 9-to-5 job at the Post-Gazette that's not fantasy football. I do post my fantasy rankings if you're from Pittsburgh listening here, you can find my rankings in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette newspapers every Sunday as well. That's a cool thing we're still doing. We still print our paper twice a week on Thursdays and Sundays. And I'll be posting some fantasy articles like I've done the last couple of years for these upcoming 2 weekends are like the biggest draft weekends of the year. So I'll have a handful of articles I'll be posting at post-gazette.com as well. So that's it, man. I think I listed everywhere where you can find me right now. We'll see. I want to post more to like other social media sites. I still haven't done that yet. Maybe you'll catch me on TikTok in the near future. We'll TBD on there for now.
It's what all the kids are doing. Yeah, this is a busy time. Next couple weeks, we're gonna be drafting like crazy. I've already done a couple drafts. Yeah, my big thing is what do I name my teams? I got Ginty, so I wasn't sure whether it was I Dream of Ginty or Ginty in a Bottle. That was my big decision.
Okay.
Who? Oh, and I got CeeDee Lamb, so I wasn't sure. I think I settled on Lamb Bam, Thank You Ma'am, or something like that. So that's the name is as important to me as picking the players. I gotta get the right name.
I would have just gone Lamb over Rice.
Okay,
that's it. Okay, keep it simple, man. One of my favorite meals. I lived in New York City for 2 years during grad school. That was one of my go-to meals, man. Lamb over Rice.
There you go.
Money right there.
Hey, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe. Always a pleasure, man.
I'll see you.
All right. See you, man.